Hello. Back in 2019, with the Stormont Assembly suspended, the Westminster Government voted to impose the UK's most liberal abortion law on the people of Northern Ireland. It came into effect at the end of March last year, despite huge opposition in the province itself. Amongst other things, the new regime allows abortion up to birth in cases of what's called severe fetal impairment, where, and I quote, if the child were born, it would suffer from such physical or mental impairment as to be seriously disabled. As in the rest of the UK, this means legal abortion of babies with Down syndrome, cleft palate, and clubfoot right up to birth. And in June last year, the reinstated Assembly had the chance to express its opposition, and it did. But now it has the chance to go even further. And that's because Assembly member Paul Givan has brought forward the Severe Fetal Impairment Abortion Amendment Bill to end these kinds of abortions. And I'm delighted to say that Paul is with me now. Thank you for joining me, Paul.
Thank you.
With me too is Heidi Crowter. Heidi is a young woman with Down syndrome. She's married to James, who also has Downs. And she campaigns for unborn children classed as having a severe impairment to have equal treatment under the law. She's currently bringing a case against the UK government over its treatment of unborn children with disabilities in the rest of the UK. Heidi, we've spoken before. It's great to see you again.
Thank you.
Paul, let me start with you. Just tell us, why have you brought this bill?
Well, as you've highlighted, the Assembly passed a motion just over a year ago, last summer, rejecting the abortion laws that Westminster imposed upon the people of Northern Ireland at a time whenever the institutions weren't up and running. And that was legislation that was opposed by 79% of everybody that responded to the consultations. And yet the government in London went ahead and introduced these liberal laws, the most extreme anywhere in Europe. And we had a campaign then last year, and delighted again to be partnering with Heidi Crowter, and she supported that motion. And this builds upon that. It's the first legislative attempt in the Assembly since these laws were imposed upon us by Westminster to change around non-fatal disabilities. And so that this is what the legislation relates to. It's an opportunity for parliamentarians to support what a very progressive law that deals with discrimination whenever it comes to the ending of the preborn child in a pregnancy. And I hope that my colleagues will get on board and support this effort.
So the UK government has said that the law required it to implement the recommendations made by the UN Committee on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, better known as CEDAW, their report from back in 2018, including providing access to abortions in cases of severe fetal impairment. And I've read those. There's nothing in there that I can see in those recommendations requiring abortion up to birth, is there? And in fact, the government's own publication recognises that CEDAW doesn't mandate a specific legislative model.
That's correct. CEDAW is not the UN convention. It is a committee, but it has no legal standing in international law. And so what this bill is doing is entirely human rights compliant, because it's about protecting people who actually are needing of protection, and they are protected under convention rights like the European Convention in terms of the rights of people with disabilities. Even in our own laws, under the 1998 Belfast Agreement Act, there is a section called Section 75, and that places a duty on the Northern Ireland governments to promote equality of opportunity for people with disabilities. And that is being denied whenever it comes to pregnancy through this aspect of the abortion law. We also had the UK Supreme Court, when the Northern Ireland Human Rights Commission took a case, they sought a ruling in this area, and the UK Supreme Court did not uphold their challenge in respect of this. So this in no way violates human rights legislation or human rights conventions. It's my clear view that it is entirely in line with the UK's agreement that they've entered into around, for example, the United Nations convention around the rights of persons with disabilities, of which the UK government is a signatory, to remove laws that stigmatize and perpetuate and stereotypes things around people with disabilities. So this is why this bill is so important, because it is removing laws that are discriminatory based upon the 1967 Act. So we're going back over 30 years that these laws that were introduced in 2020, and I don't believe in a society that values everybody and wants to treat everybody equally, that people with disabilities should be singled out in the abortion legislation.
Yeah, yes. Well, Heidi, you live in England, and this bill, Paul's bill, affects Northern Ireland. So why did you decide to get involved?
So I got involved in this because I am doing the same thing in England, and I want this discriminatory law to be changed.
As I mentioned earlier on, the current law allows abortion up to birth for those deemed to have what it calls severe fetal impairment. Do you think Down syndrome is a severe impairment?
Definitely not, because I'm someone who has Down syndrome, and if I was severely impaired, I wouldn't be able to marry James. And I can cook, I can clean, and I wouldn't be able to get the top mark in GCSE French.
Oh, well done. Another part of what the CEDAW framework and recommendations talk about is it says that the law shouldn't perpetuate stereotypes towards persons with disabilities. Now, we've spoken before, so I know that you don't really feel like you have a disability at all, but you do feel discriminated against, don't you?
Yes, I do feel discriminated against, because I don't tolerate any means of discrimination, because I believe that everyone has a right to life, and I want people just to accept me as I am. And the song I absolutely love is "This Is Me" by the Greatest Showman, because there's a verse in it that's really upsets me, because it says, "No one will love you as you are, but my husband does." I had an interview with Sky News ages ago, and I said, "My husband is Downs," and I went, "Oh." Well, I said, "Well, he has Downs, and it's only an extra chromosome."
Paul, just if I come back to you, your great uncle Samuel had Down syndrome as well. I understand. So for you, is this bill? Is it a personal action as well as a political one?
Yes, obviously, everyone will be influenced by their own personal circumstances. So yes, I know from speaking to my father, he would speak, very fondly of his uncle Samuel. He passed away whenever I was only 5 years of age, so I can't really remember him. But he lived for 57 years. Dad talks about how he loved to work on the farm. He had the best work ethic of any of the members of the family, is what he would say. And they just talk about how he brought so much joy in the family, and they really cherished him. So yes, obviously that personal aspect motivates me, as well as wanting to have legislation that respects the dignity of all human life. That is an overarching philosophy that I believe in and seek to pursue politically. But there is, of course, those personal stories, and I've been touched by people like Heidi, and whenever they say to me that this law makes them feel less valued, less worthy than other people, then I think it's incumbent on people in political office to respond to that and to seek to remove that type of legislation. And I've spoken to families here in Northern Ireland, and they're part of this campaign, and they've spoken about how their son or daughter that has Down syndrome and how they find this legislation offensive, and that they're joining this campaign because they want to fight for a society that doesn't regard people with Down syndrome as a diagnosis or a problem, that actually it is something that is unique, which is to be cherished, that enriches our community and our society. So, I'm humbled to be able to, work with people like Heidi and the organisation Don't Screen Us Out, and I really value the work that they do, because they really speak powerfully in the public domain. And Heidi was talking about all of the things that she can do. She can engage with politicians and the media far better than many other people, and she is an absolute star whenever it comes to campaigning on this most important issue.
Previously, 75 out of 90 MLAs, so that's over 80% of MLAs at Stormont, have voted against abortion up to birth on the grounds of a non-fatal disability. So are you optimistic of success with your bill?
Well, I'm hopeful. I'm obviously alert to a lot of challenges that are going to be presented in respect of what this bill is trying to do. The bill does set a very important precedent now that the Assembly is up and running. Because obviously when I put this bill into the Assembly authorities, the Speaker had to approve that it was within the legislative competence of the Northern Ireland Assembly to legislate in this area. So it's not Westminster that should be interfering. This is now a devolved issue. So it is for those 90 MLAs to deal with it. And we did have a motion last year, which 75 out of those 90 MLAs did vote in favour of this aspect of the abortion law being unacceptable. Obviously, it's a matter for those other parties as to whether or not they will retain that position going forward. But I have worked with other MLAs in different political parties in bringing this bill forward. It's not just me and my own party that's doing this. There are other parliamentarians that will be supporting this initiative. And I'm confident, that we should be able to get the required votes in the Assembly to at least allow it to proceed to the next stage where it will be scrutinised by the relevant committee in the institutions. But it is a long road ahead, and I'm just appealing to my colleagues, that this is an opportunity to support a piece of legislation that tackles discrimination. And I am encouraged because I've already had one MLA who did vote for the abortion laws being brought in, who has indicated to me that they do support a lot of the abortion laws, but they don't support this aspect of it. So there will be some people that maybe haven't always been allies in the past politically, but because this is dealing with discrimination against people with disabilities, and they recognize that as something that they find very difficult to reconcile with when it comes to termination of pregnancies and abortion, I do think you will have some individuals coming on board because of the nature of what this law relates to.
Well, that's very encouraging to hear, and we certainly wish you very well with your bill, Paul.
Well, thank you, and thank you, of course, to the Christian Institute, because I know the importance that it is to have people proactively engaging on this. And when we enter into the public square, it's important that everybody tries to fill that space and articulate reasons why this is very important. And the Christian Institute have always been doing that. And I would encourage your supporters to be proactive and to engage in this very important piece of work.
Well, thank you, Paul, and thank you, Heidi, both very much indeed for your time. Thanks very much.